man Dave. What's going on, man? Congratulations on your 250 subs. So I've been holding it off so much. I just need to find the time to go through the collection and see what I can find for 50s records. Man, I thought I had a lot more. I mean, not a lot more, but I just figured I'd have some that were a few more 50s records than I had. And so I'm sorry. I think all my answers aren't really going to fulfill and make you happy and really be the best ones. But, you know, I just want to put an enter into your contest. So let me show the 50s records. I had them from the earliest I have until the latest. I only have one that's pretty much like songs from the earlier 50s. Everything else is like 56 and after. And I don't know how much of it really fits your style. So we'll find out. This first one here is not an... well, it's like a re-release. It's like a compilation. And it's songs that are from the early 50s, it seems, throughout all the 50s. And I really love this. It's a really cool find. I was really happy. It's my first introduction to hearing them play, and it's really cool. So there's some really beautiful songs on here. This is Les Paul and Mary Ford. The World is Still Waiting for the Sunrise. Just really cool. I never really knew much about Les Paul except for him being the one who, you know, made the guitar. So this is really interesting, and you know, I didn't really know anything about Mary Ford with him at all. And it's one of my favorite album covers. It's such a pretty, colorful cover, and what I love so much is that, like, while you're listening to the music, it has all these different really cool little factoids that are really cool facts to know about Les Paul and stuff while you're listening to the music. You can go along and read it. Just really cool stuff, but a lot of this stuff in here is referencing 50s, so I know that this is from 50s, and it says right here that the first song on the side one is called How High is the Moon? Oh, How High the Moon is their first big smash, and it hit the charts like gangbusters, supported a Capital Records executive. March 1951, settled in for a long stretch in the #1 position in the record polls. Man, you wouldn't believe the numbers that are on this, on the information on these guys. Like, I never even knew it was like this. This is so cool. The first fact. A happy statistician employed by Capitol Records says that a pile of all the records that Les and Mary have sold would reach 18 miles into the sky, or make 75 piles as high as the Empire State Building. It would also take 171.25 years to listen to them all. That's insane. That's like ridiculously insane. I can't think, there's probably no one else with as much music. Alright, let's get the years. 66, 66. It's the most positive. I had the right year on this one. Yep. Okay. This is 1956. A lot of these are the ones, well, a couple of these are just the typical ones. These next two are the typical ones that you're going to see artists that are going to be in a thrift store everywhere. So I have one of each of their albums, but I do enjoy them. I think they're cool to have in your collection. So these are like their dollar bin, 25, 50-cent finds. I think anyone should have one of because they're great vocalists. This is Tennessee Ernie Ford's Hymns. You can find a lot of his stuff. I think this one's in pretty good shape. And I just really like it. It's a very simple album. But man, this guy, it's a deep voice, but Tennessee Ernie Ford can sing, man. He's got the soul down deep there, so it's a really pretty back cover. Perry Como, We Get Letters. This is another one that I don't really listen to much of him at all, but I decided to pick this up. I didn't know who I didn't even know who he was, man. I'm not really that. I don't really know too much about the 50s and all the older school pop culture and how he had a TV show and everything. And this album is basically says the style's relaxed, the backgrounds are light and easy. It's a cross-section of requests that Perry Como sings on his weekly TV show. And on AllMusic, I was just looking this up just to find the year on this. This is 1957. It's pretty much, the reviewer on AllMusic guy talks about, like, it's pretty much the epitome, like the absolute best Perry Como record. And I just remember putting this on after, like, you know, getting it for real cheap and not really knowing, and probably thinking it was going to be something I wouldn't keep but wanted to hear it. And I thought the cover was really funny and cool. And I ended up putting it on, and I was just really impressed and said, this guy has a really good voice. So I decided to keep this one record of his, but it's not really something I would have to go, I wouldn't really be interested in going and get more of. If you know me, if you've heard this before, you might know that I'm a very big collector and fan of this man. This is Glenn Yarbrough. This is who you're listening to. This is one of his earliest records. He had a career with the Limelighters from 59 through 63. I still don't have any Limelighters records. I know that big hit single of his that made him huge was that in 64 or 5 called Baby It's Gonna Rain, or It Has to Rain or something. I have around like 7 or 8 of his records from different span of years, and this is one of his early ones. This is also 57. Come Sit By My Side, sung by Glenn Yarbrough, arrangements by Fred Brooks, and if you can hear him, he just has this very timbre voice that I just think is amazing. And this album's a little bit different because of the fact that it's sort of it's an earlier sound of his, so it's a lot of like, seems like it's a lot of you know, covers and just traditional types of songs, and it's really more to like really get into like following and getting to really get to know his voice. And of course all of his records are getting to know his voice, but when the songs and the way that he the songs he chose and in the later records have a lot more, I think, up my alley in terms of the vibe and what they're about, and this is more just traditional sounding. Sounds kind of mountain-esque. What's funny is that for some reason when I first saw this, I thought that this would be one of his later albums. He's young in the front, but man, he also at the same time looks like this looks like a very newer cover, but it's actually not. So, Glenn Yarbrough, man, that's my boy. This is the one I've been listening to a lot lately. 58. This is from 1958. I just discovered him and I really like him a lot. This is a jazz guy. His name is Ahmad Jamal from 1958. This is called self-titled, but it's also known as the Ahmad Jamal Trio Volume 4. And he's just this very particular guy, and he still puts out albums today. He just put out a record this year, something with Blue Moon in it or something. So the other night, on one of my random nights, of course, where I'm just like up to like 4 or 5 in the morning, and I don't have to work early the next day, and I'm just searching the web and just discovering and getting tons of music. And I went ahead and got a bunch of his other records, and his 70s get more particular, but his earlier stuff is this very... I have a lot of trouble describing jazz, but this guy is known for having a lot of space in between his notes that he plays on the keys, and just really seems like he's not overdoing it and knows how to keep it subtle and to stay in the pocket and not to really, you know, might be able to play well, but he's not going to go out there and make the song bad by overdoing himself. But this is great. I found this at one particular Goodwill recently, and I've been wanting to go back there because I figured there's a good chance that not too many people are at the Goodwill I'm going to are really going through all these records and picking them up like I am. And I didn't know who he was when I got this, but I feel like there's a couple others there that are probably... I think there was a couple other Ahmad Jamals there, so I really wanted to see if there were. And then the last one I'm going to show you is, I picked this up for $6 at Lunchbox Records. It's the original. This is Frank Sinatra from 1959. Where Are You? I had like 4 Frank Sinatra records, and there was a time when I first started getting the vinyl back in November where I really was like intrigued by him and I want to get more into him. And I do enjoy him, and if I see any Frank Sinatra, I'm not going to not pick it up because it's Frank Sinatra. But just like, you know, just like one of those, from the thread that Andy made recently with all those like records that you have in your shelf that you really don't listen to enough of, that don't get the listening time. I think all my Frank Sinatras don't get the listening time, but this is the one I remember listening to the most, so I think it's an amazing cover too. I freaking love the sleeve. So it's 59. So those are my 50s records. There's not too many of them. There might be another 1 or 2, but I can't find the years on them. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But you know, showing you 6 across the board I thought might be worth showing. Elvis. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. This is why I was worried about my response. I don't really listen to any Elvis. I found like one Elvis record a while back at a thrift store, one or two, and I ended up just trading them, and I don't know if he's someone I can get into. You know, it's so cool to see someone your age and the things you're into and the style that you rock, and because I mean it's just amazing. I love it, and it's so obvious that, like, you know, then I feel like I don't want to insult her or anything, but I feel like you probably agree, or like probably think to yourself, like, man, I wish I was in the 50s. I was meant for the 50s. But it's just interesting to see how different music styles, and I feel like Elvis's music is a very particular style for someone of today's day and age and generation to be into, and I think being able to appreciate that is really an amazing thing. It's interesting because I feel like I just don't know if he could ever hit me the way that other people feel like they get hit by him. I mean, it seems like you get hit by him a lot in terms of an emotional level, and maybe you hear songs that he sings and the way that he plays his music, and it just gets you and gives you, you know, goosebumps and shivers down your spine, and it's just like, you know, it's just a different stroke for different folk. It's like, I don't think that you probably would ever, I don't think you probably do ever get into like hip hop the way that I do. And when I was in 11th grade and stuff, or 10th grade, and first hearing underground hip hop, I used to feel like it was like kind of like silly, like I was this white kid or whatever, and now it's so like not even about that, and hip hop is so big, but it's sort of what I search for constantly and look for new things every day of, and there's always free mixtapes and new things being put out. So it's like hip hop, especially music and beats of hip hop, where there's like a lush key, you know, key loop or piano loop or something. And if there's just, I talked to Mary the other day. There's a couple different types of beats I can play for her where I'm like, this can just, it just gets me, and it just grabs me by the heart, and just freaking, I lush up, you know. And I feel like you had that for Elvis. I just don't know if I can get that appreciation. I would love to find out. But I did see a lot of people show that very first album of his. This is called Elvis Presley with the pink and the green. And I think it's the most rocking cover. And it looks like he's a real badass on there. And I know he's a badass in general, but like I said, I'm talking from this perspective of someone who hasn't given him any time, really, to be honest with you. So, sorry about that. But I will tell you one thing. My first real interaction with him, I think you might find this really funny and interesting. I searched for it for so long just tonight to get it and download it and burn to CD so I can play it in the background, but I couldn't. My old laptop is broken and it had it on there, and now the group is selling it. There's a DJ crew of 3 guys called Cookin' Soul that put out really great mixtapes. And when Jay-Z's American Gangster, which is one of my favorite Jay-Z albums, came out, eventually the acapellas came out, and there were a lot of remix albums being made by people the same way they did with the Black Album by Jay-Z. And there were 2 that were my favorite. One was a Marvin Gaye one. The other one was called Billboard Gangsters. Because when American Gangster came out, Jay-Z tied Elvis for the record spot of amount of number 1 albums. He tied Elvis with 10. And now that Blueprint 3 came out, his last album, he actually had another number 1 album. So now Jay-Z actually beat Elvis in terms of having the 11 number 1 albums versus Elvis having 10. But it's a cool thing that Elvis held that spot, and it's really sick that Jay-Z has that spot now too. They made this mixtape of amazing, amazing original beats that were all as a, you know, sort of a celebration of the 2 of them. And it's all Elvis songs that they took and made beats out of, and then used the acapellas for the songs. And at the end of every single song, they would go into like a little 10 to 30 second clip of the original song, and or they either open up with it or close with it on every song. So I'd hear a clip of the original, and then I'd see how they flipped it, and it was so awesome. And that really right there showed me a lot of appreciation for it. Search on YouTube. Search maybe I'll see if I can find one to put down below for one of my favorite ones. Excuse me, but search for Jay-Z and Elvis Billboard Gangsters and see what comes up and see how cool some of those beats are. They're really great. So that's like my first real introduction to Elvis. So I guess it's sort of fitting with me to get into him that way. Last thing was the black groups, and I'm sorry that you had to deal with those people saying those comments. But I don't know what to tell you, except, I mean, I don't listen. I listen to some R&B. I listen to a lot of R&B today and some older stuff, but I don't really have groups per se. My first automatic thing, and I'm just going to stick with it, is the Roots crew, the legendary Roots crew. The Roots are just, you just can't ever get, I can't ever not get down with the Roots. The Roots are such an amazing group. Questlove is an amazing drummer. Black Thought is one of the most underrated, one of the best, probably a top 10 MC, probably a top 10 MC for sure. He's great, and he doesn't get the credit he usually deserves. I don't know if you listen to the Roots at all. The one that really first hit me by the Roots, I know that people were really into their album, like Things Fall Apart album and Phrenology. The first one that really hit me and made me realize how much I really love them, even though I had some others, was The Tipping Point. I really loved The Tipping Point. And then from The Tipping Point, I then got a lot into Illadelph Half-Life. But and then of course How I Got Over is an amazing album. Their new one's great. The Roots are just always reinventing themselves, and they've been around for such a long time, and they're just really getting some really great classic, legendary status under their belt. And you know, good for them getting on the Jimmy Kimmel show. And Jimmy Kimmel. Or the other guy. You know what I mean. The late night show. It's not Jimmy Kimmel. It's the guy from SNL. And, anyway, they're just great, man. So I love the Roots. So I want to rep that to you and tell you to check out the Roots crew. But yeah, those are the answers to your question. I hope you enjoy this stuff I showed. I hope I gave you some good food for thought. Thanks for letting me enter. And I'm glad I got around to making sure this was done in time. You're one of the very first people to respond to my contest, and I was like so shocked that I didn't know you watched my videos at all. So congratulations, man. I'm looking forward to seeing some more stuff. I'll talk to you soon. One love.